Can everybody find a seat, please? Thank you.
All right, guys, please find your seats. Dan Cox would like to say that, but he's not talking loud enough.
Yes. Despite being retired for 11 days, this is my last official act as WCWP Director of Broadcasting, and if I can keep it together long enough, we'll get through this. Debate over whether I would wear shorts today. I compromised. I kept my sandals on. I didn't change into my shoes. My parents said I should have been born in 1951, not 1961. I would have done much better as a flower child. I'm just an idiot. But I want to get through a few things. First of all, after 2 years, more than 2 years now, of what we went through, and I'm not going to harp on it because today's a day of happiness. It really sucked. It hurt a lot. And at the end of it, I said, I can't do this anymore, and I decided to retire. But one of the things I find gratifying about my retirement is that WCWP lands in the hands of another WCWPer. People, stand up, please. The legacy continues, as it did with me after 10, 11 years of the 90s. What were the 90s? Does anybody remember? Joe, you're the only guy I can ask about the 90s, and Jay. The 90s were, it's kind of tough. When I got there, it was thank God for Joe Manfredi, who's an inductee tonight, because he was there to help me move along. Poor Pete's only got me, and I'm retired, and I don't want to come back to campus anymore because I'm enjoying laying on my back deck with a drink at 10 a.m. But I just want to say hello and thank you for coming. This is the largest group we've ever had for an induction ceremony. It's also the largest group of inductees, but it is the largest group of, that we've ever had for an induction ceremony, and I hope that continues forward. As also the chairperson of the 2022 Alumni Hall of Fame Committee, we got a good group that could be coming forward, and you'll get that announcement at homecoming who the 22 inductees are for this. Hopefully we'll meet again a year from now in 23 to celebrate them. So I want to acknowledge a few people in the room. The inductees, you'll get your shot. But as far as I'm concerned, this is feedback. I have to mention a few people. First and foremost, she's not here, but I know she's online. Janine Solaro was my secretary for a long time. And my right arm, my left arm, a good friend for a very long time. And helped me make WCWP what it is today, whether you like it or not. He's no longer with the station, but he's in my heart every day, and I'm so happy that he's here and from Pennsylvania, and that's Chris Maffei back there. Hello, Chris. Without Janine and Chris, my tenure at WCWP could have been a lot shorter. I'm proud of the accomplishments we made. Chris and Janine and I. Unfortunately, the pandemic, took them away from me, but it's all good. It's all good. But anyway, this is a happy day, so let's move on to the happiness. The process is simple, okay? A person will come up and say nice things about one of the inductees. At least we hope so. This is not a roast, but hey, when in Rome. Now, if you want to, you could say, the inductee will speak, will give their speech, all right? But then I have this, and this will travel around the room. And anyone who wants to make a comment or a statement about the inductee, please do so, especially if it's a good story. WCWP has a 60-year history of mischief. One of the oldest radio stations on the college level on Long Island, one of the first. It does have a very interesting history. You should read Steve Post's book. You'll learn a lot about it. but we've done a lot of things here. And in that 60 years, we've done a lot of stupid things. And those are the ones we want to hear when I give you the microphone. Because despite all the craziness that we've done, this place has endured like a shining star on the other side of the Hillwood Commons for all that time. A place where people could get together and be creative and enjoy each other's company. And that's what we're here to do today. So I'm going to start today with our first inductee from the class of 2020, because we're behind a little bit, and to induct Alan Seltzer, his friend, Scott Perschke.
Is this thing on? Hello to everybody. Congratulations to all of the inductees. I'm very happy to know most of them, I think. Alan and I have known each other a very long time. 1976 is when he knocked on my dorm room door during intersession, unannounced. And who is this guy? Well, I soon found out. We've been best friends for how many years? More than we want to count?
Yeah.
And I have to tell you that this is not the first time that Alan has asked me to give a speech for him. The first time was at Alan's first wedding, in which I was the best man. How did that work out?
This hopefully will be better.
I hope so. I hope so. Alan has a long history at WCWP, and I don't want to bore anybody, but the accomplishments need to be said. He started out like all of us did. He started out doing newscasts. He did now let's see, how can I put this? He was the behind-the-scenes guy during the presidential election of 1976. Jimmy Carter and Gerald Ford, yeah, I remember him. Alan wasn't on the air. Neil Marks and I did the on-air part under the auspices of Laurie Serafin, ex-news director. And Alan covered the Gerald Ford speech at Nassau Coliseum, and he also did the election night at the Board of Elections, which has now morphed into something that you do as a regular thing. You head up the Board of Elections at polling places. One polling place, okay. Well, Alan gets involved, is the point. He got involved with news. He got involved with what was then called Midnight Progressive music show. He got involved with the Community Bulletin Board. He was the coordinator for community service. In other words, he wrote CBBs. You all remember CBBs? And that got read during programming. Since his graduation, Alan is an unusual Hall of Famer in that he chose not to go into broadcasting as a career, unlike so many of the people in this room. He did all of his work at WCWP. And for that, he deserves a great deal of credit. He ended up here. And good job, my friend. Good job. Since his graduation, he has headed up the WCWP Alumni Association for, 10 years?
Actually, Bernie was in charge.
Okay. All right. Well, I'm giving you too much credit, but that's appropriate today.
But keep going.
Yeah, keep going. So he was homecoming weekend coordinator. He and I had a long-standing tradition of doing shows back-to-back and making lots of fun of each other and making sure that we were all humble, right? He was one of the original hosts of the later programming that is now known as The Rock Show. Let me see. He and Bobby and Bernie and Mike Riccio, who is not here, were the original 4 hosts. I did my bit a little bit later, and that was always a pleasure. And The Groove Yard. That's Alan's real claim to fame at WCWP. He took over a show that, an oldies show, in other words, before the British invasion, anything before 1964. And he took a show because, who was it that was sick?
Jeff, I think.
Okay, Jet that was sick, but
Kevin left and then Jet.
right. So Alan came in and took a show that had no promotion, probably very little listenership, and built it into what became a real boon for WCWP. He built a website. He built a blog. And all of a sudden, 250% increase from one year to the next. And that speaks of Alan's dedication to WCWP more than anything else. To be a Hall of Famer, it's not good enough to do a radio show. It's not good enough to just be on the air, do your thing, and go home. You have to participate and you have to involve yourself in the station, and he's done that. So my congratulations to my friend Alan Seltzer. Please come up and tell us all about yourself.
God, that guy sounds pretty good. Too bad I don't know who he is. No, I won't be long. Those of you who do listen to the Groove Yard, you know the average thing that I do, which is play records on the show, they last about 2.5 minutes. And that's typical for me. In fact, we won't take the time to discuss how that's affected my love life. So, before I continue, though, I do want to say thank you to Scott. And also, his birthday is coming up this Tuesday, so I want to wish him a happy birthday publicly. He's been my best friend for 46 years. You're a little younger than I am. Okay. Shh, it's okay. Now, I first considered coming to Post after talking to my high school homeroom teacher, my junior year in high school. She mentioned her son used to work at a radio station, and he wound up getting a job at the Nassau County Health Department doing public relations. That was Ted David's mother. So you never know where people are going to come from, and you never know who you need to talk to. I've been blessed in my many years at the station by 2 great station managers. They were very different people, different personalities. But both of them had a couple of things in common. They allowed us to be creative for the benefit of the station, and they gave great guidance and direction. Okay. Bill Moser approved a concept I had when I was doing community service for a Big Brother campaign. And that was a series of special CBBs focusing on Big Brother, and we ran them, I think, like once an hour or so. And also we had special interview shows during the talk programming each week, winding up with a 1-hour special, basically combining all of them. And we wound up winning an award for that, which I'm very proud of. Okay. Dan Cox also gives great guidance. When we were part of the Friends of WCWP, which is the forerunner of today's Alumni Association, we were just a little more radical at the time and talked about overthrowing the administration a couple of times. I've heard rumors about how my name was cursed at a trustee meeting or two. I don't know. But Dan said something very important. He said, we're no longer a radio station, that we're content providers. I didn't even know if you remember saying that at the time. Yeah. And, that became the focus when I started with the Groove Yard. Now, Dan also knew when to stay out of the way. He allowed me to be creative on the Groove Yard. I think in 10 years, you've made one negative comment. It was about a month after I started, and I had a guest on, and it was a little bit off from what we normally do. And you comment...
You mean the Playboy Bunny?
No, that was on Seltzer with Twist. That was on the Rock Show. No, actually, she came on.
Oh, don't use words like that, please.
She was a guest on the Groove Yard after Hugh Hefner died. So it kind of worked out. So, but but he happened to be right about that. So, and Dan mentioned a new station manager, Pete Bellotti, began this week. My sense is Pete's going to follow the great lead of Bill and Dan. Pete and I have been mistaken as for being father and son at LIU events. My goal is to outlast Pete at the station. Now, either that means I got to last a real long time, or Pete's really got to suck. No. Now, nobody is really completely original, and I include myself in that. My personal guide, when I started planning the Groove Yard and saying what am I going to do with this show, which was 2 hours at the time, was looking at what Rick Sklar would have done. For those of you who don't know, Rick Sklar was the programming guru that basically invented WABC and gave it the sound that was the iconic centerpiece of any top 40 type of station. Okay, and Rick promoted everything. Okay, he figured out how to tie in the moon landing with the station. Okay, when there was a new DJ, he had a contest for people to send pictures in of what the DJ looked like, and they had to draw the picture. Okay, when his air staff went on strike, he had a promo for the super pickets who were picketing outside on 6th Avenue. I still follow that rule. Tonight's show, I'm doing Rock and Roll Hall of Fame inductees. It works out. Okay. Now, we don't really have to be original. We can take somebody else's idea, we can make it our own. Okay. Lou Sharpberg is here. Years ago, when Lou was doing Maximum Music, he used to call the station the Great 88. Well, that's the largest promo and the most popular promo that I do over the course of the year. Okay, and today it's into its 10th year as a promotion. The number of votes every year has gone up incredibly. So, and I'm talking about tonight's theme hour. The theme hours came from Pete Fornatel, who was disc jockey at progressive rock station, WNEW-FM. It evolved into what became his mixed bag show that he's best known for. I do the same theme hours, it's just very different music. So it sounds like it's my idea, but I know where it came from. So, and it really goes on, because when I heard all the tributes to Pete after the 10th anniversary of his passing, and I listened to them, a lot of DJs talked about their influence, on his influence on them. And then also his mentor, Roscoe, and his influence, and Roscoe's influence on Pete. And that continues today at WCWP. Whether it be Jeff Kroll mentoring sports staff or anybody else. Christina Kay and the many people that you've mentored over the years. Okay. Our alumni today are influencing the future radio hosts, bloggers, and other technologies that don't even exist yet, and we're there. Okay, and if we do that and we bring joy to our listeners for a few hours on and off the air, then we've done what we're supposed to do. So, as I say at the end of my show, I thank you for listening. Without you, I would be talking to myself.
There you go, my friend. There you go. Congratulations.
Thank you.
Thank you, Michael. As always. You're welcome. Scott, why don't you come up here and get a picture with that? Please, jump in.
It's the closest I'm going to get to one of these things.
All right, 1, 2, 3. Good. Okay. All right. You don't have to do this. Does anyone want to share a story about Alan? Good, let's move on. Anyone? You will? Barney?
Uh-oh.
Testing 1, 2.
Bernie, I paid you not to.
Will? No.
Hello.
Oh, good, good, good. Before the Tillis Center, we had an auditorium and then something called the Dome, which was supposed to be this architectural marvel. Well, the first time we got a heavy snow, the dome caved in. And Alan was on the air the next day. So what happened?
Okay. That was a fun night. I was doing Midnight Progressive, the Thursday night show. Okay. And we didn't have the window in what is now Studio A at the time, so I had no idea what was going on outside. And that was also one of the nights when, of course, our UPI teletype died. Didn't give us the weather forecast the way it's normally supposed to do, so I have no clue. And the weather forecast that we had said it was partly cloudy. So 3 o'clock at the end of my show, go off the air, go out the side door, carrying my crate of records, and I see about 24 inches of partly cloudy on the ground. So I wound up getting snowed in there. Fortunately, had my girlfriend's dorm key because it was during intercession. Stayed over, did special reports on the snow the next day, ran board, did the 6 o'clock newscast, and did a couple of other things along the way before they could finally dig my car out. And got home and woke up the next morning to the news that the dorm had closed, had fallen down. And so I did a special show the next night. I was scheduled to be on the air Saturday night, did a show on the echoes of the Dome that featured all the artists that performed at the Dome.
Who performed the last night? Do you remember?
No.
I believe it was Elvis Costello.
One more thing about the Dome. There was a DJ at WCWP named was John Fox. And John he was on the air the night the Dome collapsed. He stayed over in the lounge. For those of you who remember, the lounge at the radio station was the part that was directly next to the Dome. John woke up the next morning and looked across the campus at the library. Now, when the dome was there, you couldn't see the library. So John is looking over and it's like, there's something that's not right here, but I don't know what it is. And he shortly got a call from another radio station on Long Island saying, hey, tell us about the accident. What happened? And John is like, what accident? God bless the dome.
I can add to that. I was program director at the time. And yeah, I know. I was program director at the time, and John was sleeping over in the lounge because he had he scheduled for the Sunday morning show. And I was home. I got up and I saw all these news reports about the dome collapsing. So I called on the hotline, which I think was 2828. Was that the hotline? 2828? And I said, John, what's going on up there? He goes, what are you talking about? I said, John, the dome? He goes, what about the dome? I said, John, the dome collapsed. He goes, the dome didn't collapse. I said, John, the dome collapsed. He says, didn't. He goes, I'm right here in the lounge. Let me look out the window. He goes, oh shit, the dome collapsed.
Anyone else? Okay. Well, those of us who came to school after the dome collapsed blamed all the tuition increases on the fact that they were rebuilding it. We call it the house that the class of '85 built. Anyway, thank you, Alan, and congratulations one more time. Our next inductee from 2020, if I can get through this. In my 20-year career as the director, lots of people came through that place. And I could break my arm patting myself on the back, but I thought I was really good at recognizing talent. When I saw a kid that really knew what he was doing in TV class and said, you're going to do football with this guy next to you, and you're going to become a sports guy. What happened, Pete? You became a sports guy. But when you walked in the building, my whole world changed in a lot of ways as part of that job, and I'll tell you why. When I got there in 2002 at the station itself, 20 years ago, there was turmoil, as you guys know. Oh, yeah. There was a lot of controversy, and I walked right into that shitstorm. But I took it on because I wanted to. Because the people back there, like Joe Conti and Karen Fiorelli, who I don't know your new last name, I'm sorry, sweetie. Still Fiorelli, okay. Were there, and they seemed like they wanted to get stuff done, and so did I. And it was a struggle, and it was a lot of work, but you guys pulled it off. I didn't pull it off. I didn't pull off anything. I got paid. You guys did all the work. I've always maintained that. And then things started to get a little bit better. A lot more kids are coming in. Not all broadcasting majors. I think that point needs to be made, that the radio station was never built on the broadcasting program. It was built on the people who needed a place to be. And the radio station was the place to be, and it still is. A young man came in and built a program called Top 40 Total Access. And I hate Top 40. I can't tell you how much I hate Top 40. However, I love pop music. And no one thought that of me. They said, oh, that's the guy who built Rock and Roll Weekend, that heavy metal format in 1983 that made all the news. And the reason he got hired is because he did that once and he's never going to do that again. They were right. I can't do that again. That was 1983. It's different. They didn't have the internet back then. But Top 40 Total Access started to really work. People were listening. Things were happening. But the person who was running it, and I don't like to mention names, especially if I'm going to be negative, was a self-centered prick. A pompous ass that I could not stand. But when you're a director of broadcasting and you're working with students, you can't say that to them until they graduate. But I never said it to him. I just wished him well and moved on. But along the way, in comes this young lady who, she tells me she went to a Catholic high school, so all of a sudden, now I got to be careful. I said, and she comes in, and within a month, you're going to be a star. I knew it. I knew it. Because you came in and took what was done, which was good, and made it great. Because that's the kind of talent you have. Now, on a personal level, we share the fact that I call her my second daughter. I have one daughter who's Baby is due Wednesday. I'll be leaving for Boston on Tuesday morning. Thank you. But I've always called her my second daughter because I only had one. I got 3 sons. They're a pain in the ass, and I like daughters. But I called her my second daughter because we got close. She broke a lot of molds with me. I had been Pete could remember. I was a very tied-up guy. Nobody knew much about me. I think you might even know my birthday, and nobody knows my fucking birthday because I don't celebrate it. That I was kind of wound up. I was under a lot of pressure. I had to perform. The university was, we just come out of the WLIU controversy, and we were working on getting things straight. But you were a breath of fresh air and a piece of sunshine that I really needed. And over time, we would talk, you and I. And she found out I love musical theater because she loves musical theater. She found out I love the Muppets, and I still have a Muppet mug that I have used every day since the day you gave it to me, and it went home with me last week, and I almost cried into it. I've used it every day since you gave it to me. She learned that, I'm this big freaking softy who doesn't really, well, Joe Conti, I can bark pretty good, but she broke a lot of things that I needed to get broken because I didn't want to be the hard-ass boss. I needed to be in the beginning, but I didn't need to be once you guys came around. And you changed a lot of things in my life when it came to managing people. You helped me learn that you don't always take the I'm the boss road. Because I've learned, if you say you're the boss, you're not the boss. You're just an asshole. Just trying to look tough. You softened me up, although we still have our issues about Disney. You softened me up, and you took the format ahead, and you took it to new levels. And one other thing I need to mention, and this is partially I'm going to brag a little bit about myself, but also about her. For the last 20 years, if I got a phone call from an organization of autistic children or adults, I always allowed them to come to the station to work. And over the years, I've had many autistic adults come work at the station. We'll get to you later, Michael. And I love them all, no matter what part of the spectrum they were on, no matter how hard they worked, because I don't have autistic children, but I find them fascinating because they're beautiful and they're wonderful, and they can do things that I could never imagine. And Christina, as part of the internship program, she would take these interns in the studio and she would work with them and she would spend time with them. And to this day, I got a message from one of them last week. He graduated Five Towns College. He's looking for a job, and he said, "I have you and Christina to thank for it." Those are the moments. I know there's some teachers in the room here. As a professor for 34 years, and as a person who's worked with young people for most of my adult life, you never get the payoff. The payoff comes later when they tell you stuff like that and you go, holy shit, I had a deep effect for that kid's life. But last but not least, Ted David was mentioned earlier. I'm going to get through this. Ted had a son, Danny. And Danny was struggling with what he wanted to do with his life. So Teddy called me and he said, listen, he says, could you help him out? I said, sure, have him come to the station. We'll teach him, don't go to the Connecticut School of Broadcasting. Don't waste your money. Come to the station, you're a legacy. We'll teach him everything he needs to know. I didn't teach him everything he needs to know. She did. And he went on to Sirius XM, became extraordinarily successful. Now, the unfortunate part of the story that Danny was killed. And I think the greatest moment of my private life with this radio station was the day Ted David called to thank me and Christina. Because that's what we do at WCWP. We don't make radio, we make content, but we also raise people to the next level of their life. I've always argued that radio stations, college radio stations, are not just radio stations. They're places where people come together to be creative and wonderful, and regardless of your background, regardless of your economic status, regardless of who you are accepted. And as far as I'm concerned, it'll always be that way, and if it isn't, I'm going to come back and kill you, Pete. because that's what life is all about. We argue about so much bullshit, but it's about the personal interactions and taking the person to the next level. And this young lady took me to the next level, and I will always be grateful to her for it. So I honestly and lovingly induct you into the WCWP Hall of Fame. Christina Kay. Your turn.
Oh, gosh. I am very overwhelmed right now. I look in this room, and I didn't want to prepare what to say for a reason, because I wanted to feel what I'm feeling right now. There is a sense of family in this room. It is the island of misfit toys, and I couldn't be prouder to be a part of it. Whether I know you or not, or I've met you later on in life, you've been a part of my journey. But my journey kind of started in this building, and it's funny that there's an admissions event going on today, because I didn't really want to go to college. I was in a really weird space when I was in high school, and I came in the store to get my books, because this was a bookstore when I was a student, and I didn't think I was going to make it very far in college. It just wasn't for me. And then I was taking a class with Professor Cox. And I'm so glad I was paying attention that day, because he talked about this radio station that he has and to come see what it's like. And I was kind of desperate at that point to find my place. So I went, and it changed my life. And then I took a class with Bernie Bernard, who I cannot believe came all the way from Florida. And she's wearing a Disney shirt for me today. Oh my gosh. And I took a class with Bernie, and she said, "What's your major?" And I said, "I'm in a weird place right now." She's like, "Broadcasting. That's going to be your major." And I get a reputation. I changed so many kids' majors to broadcasting, and I'm so sorry to all those kids now that I think about it, broadcasting. But it all started with Bernie, and they believed in me, and they created such a great environment. And I know Jeannie Beanie's watching, and I am so lucky that I had a place in between classes to go where I could vent and cry in Dan's office and Janine's office, and I did that a lot. And I felt so welcomed. And when I changed my major to broadcasting, my poor parents were like, "Well, what are you going to do with that? Broadcasting?" And for a long time, I didn't know how to answer, because it's an interesting major, and I wasn't that familiar with it. And then as I knew what I wanted to do, I didn't really answer the question, because how do you tell these two people who are helping you get through college, I want to push buttons, talk on a microphone for a living, and hang out with celebrities? That's what I want to do. Good luck. It's a very rare position to be in, and I am so blessed that I'm able to say that I do that, and I live my dream. I think they understand what I do now. And I thank them for supporting me every step of the way, even when you had no idea what I was going to do, and you were worried about me, I know. And to my sister, too, my twin sister, who's been a part of so many of my projects that I did here, and she's still a part of what I do. We're going on a Disney cruise broadcast next month. She's going to help me with it. It's amazing, the support that I feel in this room. From my family at WCWP, my personal family. I see so many friends that I've made while I was here and outside of here. I have coworkers who, David North, I can't believe that you came today. It brought me to tears. We worked in news. We used to do early Saturday mornings together and share stories about where are we going in life, something that never changed from when I was at WCWP. I'm just very thankful to be here today. This means more to me than when I graduated college, honestly. To say that I did something for WCWP. Last night I was at Jones Beach and someone asked me, "Oh, so how did you get started? Where did you go to school?" And I said WCWP. Because honestly, I learned more in that building with those people than any class. And I see so many people nodding. You agree? There's a lot of controversy right now over what's happening with WCWP. I am so proud of my good friend Pete. You're going to do amazing. But just know, no matter what you think about what's happening, I'm a nerd. Dan mentioned Disney. I love Marvel. The third Thor movie, Thor Ragnarok, the place that he's from, Asgard, spoiler alert if you haven't seen the movie, it burns. It gets destroyed. But at the end of the movie, someone says to Thor, "Asgard is a people, not a place." WCWP is here right now. We are a people. We are a very proud people. So to all the people who are a part of my journey, Chris Maffei, my partner in crime, I love you so much. Thank you for coming. Will, I'm afraid for what you're going to say in front of the microphone. Be kind. I love you. Victoria, all these people, Jamie, who I still get to work with to this day. I love you all. I thank you all. Dan, the faith that you have put in, I'm going to start crying. You taught me it was okay to be the weird, positive, Disney-loving girl. You let Will, Charlie, and I do a Disney show. What were you thinking? And I am Christina Kay. I'm who I am today because of you. I would not be Kay if it was not for you. And I love you so much, and I can't even put into words how thankful I am for you and Bernie and Janine, my family. But you changed my life. And I feel sorry for anyone who hasn't gotten a chance to work with Dan or be a student of Dan's. He's what every teacher should be, what every boss should be, what every partner should be, what every friend should be. And I love you so much. I love you all, but thank you. Thank you.
Here, Will. Take care of it. I know you probably have a story.
You're going first.
You go first.
No, you go first.
Let me give this to Christina.
Yeah, I can photograph it.
All right, who's got a story for Christina?
One, two,
No one?
three.
Now you are. Should have shut your mouth. Then you can go, Chris.
Well, Disney was mentioned, so this has to get brought up. We do Mascota Radio for 2 years, me, Will, and you. That started because of a text conversation. My mom came up with the name, because I'm bad with names, and then we just ran with it, and Dan let us run with it, even if he wasn't happy with it. That was some of the best moments of my life, and we had so much fun with that, and I hope you enjoyed it. I'm jealous of you that you got to do the media cruise on the Disney Wish, but couldn't be a better person for it. Congratulations, Christina.
So, it's hard to really find the words for Christina. I just think about all the times that you would come into my office, which, for context, was a closet with a window, and sit on the floor and just talk to me for an hour about whatever was going on, and I got absolutely no work done. And you got absolutely no work done, but that was important life stuff, and those are the things that I'll always take with me. I just think Christina is someone with the kind of strength and courage that everyone can really learn from, and she's a natural leader and a great example for me when I was coming in. And I love you, and you are one of my favorite people on the planet. And I don't have any really embarrassing stories or anything like that. I just want you to know how much of a positive influence you've been in my life and how much I really miss you. So, congratulations.
That was nice. Here, Bernie.
Screw that.
Okay.
You got it?
Yeah, I got it. I'm good. Thank you. I am standing. Christina came into my Broadcasting 4 class and said, I want to do TV. I'm kind of here. It's a required course, but I really think I want to do TV. But, well, you've already talked about how all that changed. And I think the cool thing about WCWP is people come in with a certain amount of raw talent, and it was always a place to nurture that talent, a place where people could develop themselves and develop their talent. We just kind of watched and helped along the way. It's not anything Dan and I did, like you said. People came in with this incredible talent. Now, Christina came in as an actress, a singer, and a voiceover artist. Anybody remember the Polly Pocket commercials from a few decades ago, the little doll? That was Christina doing the voice on that. She's done voices on the Phineas and Ferb, Disney. Oh. So she's done a lot. So she came in with all of this stuff. And, You know, it's just a matter of taking it and developing it and allowing her a place to do that. And now she does afternoon drive at WALK, for God's sake. It's like, wow, this incredible accomplishment. And I am just so happy and proud to have been with you on part of this journey. And this is just such a great honor for you, and congratulations.
Hi, I'm Dave North. I met Christina at WALK. Talk about a segue, Bernie. I was doing news there, so as you know, news people have to be in the station before sunrise and have everything up and running for the normal people to wake up and find out what's going on in the world. When Christina was hired, I don't know that we were introduced. It may have been one of those first day at school situations where this is this one, and you don't remember. But she came in and went to work, and I heard this voice that sounded very young, but very cheerful, very poised. And I thought, well, all right, this is interesting. WALK was kind of had a reputation as being a stodgy station. When I spoke with students, I'd say it's your mom's favorite radio station. This was a very youthful, but very poised and mature presentation. We got to know each other, stumbling in on Saturday and Sunday mornings and having brief conversations, but getting to the point. I enjoyed working with you so much. But then when we moved and started working in the same room together, I'd be working on my business. She'd be listening to callers, taking their stories. And one thing I'd noticed about a lot of broadcasters, it's about me, it's about my show, it's about what I'm doing. Always, Christina would hear a listener. She would talk to them and find out what they were doing. What do you like? What are you enjoying? What does that feel like? How do you feel about that? I thought, this is an unusual young woman. And as others have said, there are intrinsic qualities, but somewhere she found the poise and confidence to say, it's not about me, it's about you. And where does that come from? That comes from a culture, a people. And it's here. This is where she was nurtured. This is where she gained that poise and confidence to say, I have a role to play. I'm going to enjoy it. And that seems to be the key to success, Christina. I am so proud of you. I just can't believe it took them so long to recognize you and put you on PM Drive where you belong. So when I got the word from Joe that we were celebrating inductees, and Christina was on the roster, no way in the world I would have missed it. So I am so proud of you, Christina, and for the culture, the environment, the family that is this radio station. And good luck with you for continuing that heritage, this environment, and another great generation of broadcasters. Christina, thank you, and congratulations.
All right. So I met Christina 10 years ago. Yes, it's been 10 years. I came to the school not because of the elaborate broadcasting department, but because I liked the trees, and they gave me a decent scholarship. So looking for something to do one day at lunch of September, I walked into a radio station meeting with these nice graphics that weren't printed in color, but that's okay. They looked really nice anyway. Christina comes up and goes, oh, what do you do? I said, I'm a wedding MC. She says, you're staying. I'm still here. To say you changed my life and became family is just so far below what the true meaning is of what we have and what we've done over these past years with your family and everyone we've gotten to know. And I'm still here. That's because of you. And I thank you and I love you. Christina Kay, everybody. See, Dan, that was nice.
I was never nice to you, though.
You still are.
All right, we're going to take a break from the Hall of Fame for a second because the alumni, as a group, led by Hank Niemark, one of our founders of the FM station, suggested something to the Hall of Fame committee last year that we should give an award in the name of Art Beltrone. Now, Art Beltrone is not here. I'm hoping he's online. Art Beltrone is a terrific man. He is the founder, the student founder of WCWP. He and, grammar check, Art and a man named Virgil Jackson, who was a theater professor, and a man named Herbert Costin, who would be the first director of broadcasting of WCWP, founded WCWP as a carrier current station in 1961. We just celebrated the 60th anniversary a few months ago. Art is still alive, so is Hank. Dr. Costin is no longer with us, nor is Professor Jackson. But Art has been the rock that has kind of kept the history alive at WCWP, letting us know, in no uncertain terms, when I mess up or when we mess up, and when he doesn't agree. But he's a very agreeable guy. He's also an interesting man in as much as he took on a big project many years ago called the Vietnam Graffiti Project, in which he published a book about the graffiti of Vietnam, which is a fascinating book, which he gave me a signed copy of, which I recommend. So what was decided was that we would choose a student who has done great service to WCWP. And unfortunately, because of the pandemic, this is a year and a half too late. But what I'd like to do is to ask Dan Casazza to come up here. Now, some of you might know that the secondary radio service at WCWP is called The Wave, okay? The Wave is the internet radio station. It's completely run by students. I mean, I could get into the whole FM internet. I'm not going to. But Dan took it over and took it to the next level. He's not a broadcasting major. Wait, ed major. He's teaching, what are you teaching? History? U.S. history at JFK High School? Mepham High School. Mepham, that's right, Mepham High School. He's a teacher. We get a lot of teachers at WCWP. Where's Alana? Another teacher. We get a lot of teachers, okay? Because they eventually have to stand up in front of a classroom and not sound stupid, so they want to learn how to use their gifts. But Dan took it to the next level. He got the kids together. Unfortunately, the damn pandemic showed up and slowed everything down. But also to your credit, you left us with a new leader for the Wave who has done an even, not a greater, has also done an outstanding job. Because when we got back from the pandemic, not only did Deanna, who's sitting right over there, meet the number of kids coming back, because I thought after the pandemic we were dead. But all those kids came back, plus some new ones that did graduate. But for the Art Beltrone Founders Award goes to Dan Casazza. Congratulations. Thank you so much. Anybody want to yell at him?
I'll say that for later.
We're going to give out that award, or the Alumni Association is going to give out that award every year through the Hall of Fame committee. But you, as the new director, will nominate the person. Will let us know who you want to give it to. So you have a little bit of power, Pete. Good luck with that. Okay. All right, let's turn the page to 2021. Oh, did that happen? I don't remember. The last 2 years, every time somebody says, when did this happen, I have to add 2 years. Because the last 2 years have been a giant blur. But we're going to lead off with Pete Bellotti is going to induct Joseph M. Manfredi.
I did, but everyone is going off the cuff, so I think I'm going to do the same. I got sick a year ago, and really sick, with a kid at home. And two people that were always there for me, trying to cheer me up, were Joe and Jay Mirabile, two of our inductees. I want to talk about Joe, the teacher. Joe has a table back there of students from OWWR, and he does nothing but inspire them. His work ethic and his dedication to this business, this ever-changing business, is profound. It's had an impact on me. The first interaction with Joe was here, obviously at WCWP, when I walked in the building as a student and did a promo with Rob Hahn. And Rob Hahn and I were, let's just say, a little goofy with some of the things we did. And Joe listened to the promo in class, and I was like, all right, this promo is going to be something. I'm like, this is my first shot at it. It's going to be a great promo. And Joe took it apart. Joe took it apart piece by piece, but made me better. Made Rob better. Made all of us better. Dan, Joe, and Bernie were teachers and are teachers. They inspire us all the time. And he's inspired me as a friend and was there for me when I was down. And I'm just honored to induct Joe into the WCWP Hall of Fame. Come on up, Joe.
Oh, wow. Thank you, Pete. Well, first of all, good afternoon, everybody. Congratulations, by the way, to Alan and Christina, too, on their induction. Let's just give them a round of applause one more time. And to all of us watching online, I'm sorry in advance. Christina said something earlier, kind of resonated with me, and she said, this is a family affair. She's right. I look around the room, I see a lot of families, right? People that are blood related and related by class, related by profession, related to each other in every way. I'm going to be honest, I didn't prepare a speech or a script at all. Because the last time I attended one of these, it was a Q&A kind of format. So when I saw the podium in the chair and I said, oh boy, I'm like, this is going to be tough, what do I do? But for those of you that don't know, I graduated Long Island University CW Post Campus, not once but twice. I did my undergraduate here, got my bachelor's from here, and then I stayed on to earn my master's and kept going. When we think about the history of WCWP and some of the tumultuous years that Dan mentioned earlier, there was this dark cloud over WCWP that just wouldn't go away. And during those years, we achieved so much as a radio station. And there's so much history that occurred and so many great people like Pete, you know, and so many more that I could list names for days that became so successful and became such the heart of that radio station. There is something special about that building. You know, for those of you that have been on the Facebook group, I posted something late last night about Benjamin Abrams, and I made a reference to the painting that was on the wall that was encased in glass. And you know, the painting looked at you and it looked, you know, and you would look back and it became your friend. And that's it. You saw that painting every day of the week, and I was always being judged, and it was always, could I do better? Could I be better? Could the station be better? And we were. And I look around the room and I see the convergence of so many wonderful alumni, not just both from LIU, but also from SUNY Westbury, and my family in the back too, my other family. So I got two families, two worlds are colliding today. It's fantastic. But when I think about WCWP and how rich in history it was, and all the mistakes that, you know, you said something about stories and about the fun things. That's what kind of made WCWP what it was. And you were talking about the stories about the show and what show started first and which, you know, who went far and who didn't. This is all a lot for me to process, because you have to understand, when I was there, we had all of our original programming. We had two stations. We had WCWP 88.1 FM, and we had web radio WCWP, which is now, I'm assuming, called The Wave. So WCWP was full of programming. We had programming. We had classical music programming on from 9 in the morning to 12 p.m., jazz from 12 to 4. Then we had news and NPR programming 4 to 6, including news updates. And then there was music programming 6 to 10, 10 to 11, 11 to 1. That was 5 days a week, let alone what we did on the weekends with community volunteers and other alumni. And it's amazing I could still remember the programming schedule in my head from that circa. And some of you... some of you that remember, you know, some of the great jocks that we've had over WCWP's history that never really got an opportunity to even not just have their own voice heard, but their names are just going to be forgotten. When I think about folks like Jim O'Keefe, who did a blues show, a real pain in my side if he's watching, by the way, but I miss him. Chris McIntosh, right? What can't we say about Chris? The longest running gospel radio show in college history, period. And no one really knows that, and that's a part of the history that this station should be proud of too. The interviews that he did. And when I'm looking around, I think about the other two inductees. When I think about Jay Mirabile and I think about Mike Chimeri, no one has interviewed more jazz artists that I know of than Mike Chimeri. And not just, we're talking real jazz artists too. You know, right? Dave Benoit. Say again?
I said he's a good friend.
Yeah. Ken Navarro. Pete Rittenauer, all of the jazz artists that my father listens to, you know, habitually in his office. Right, name some more, Mike. We'll save that for the Mike portion. When I think about Jay too, and I think about his start when he first got a staff application from me, and he had to do the paperwork, and then he got trained in these kinds of things, and you know, he became the in-house freestyle god. You know. No, seriously, I would see photos from him in Florida with like every freestyle artist there was, right? Lizette Melendez, TKA, and all these guys. And for some reason, we talk about finding your voice. And at WCWP is that place where students found their voice. And I think that's one of the similarities between WCWP and OWWR. I didn't change the way in which I train students or how I teach in a class or how I teach in a studio. It's about giving people the ability to find their voice, who they are. You talked earlier about recognition of talent. We get it wrong sometimes, but we get it right a lot because we know better than they do what they have the ability to do or not do. And even if they don't believe that in themselves, and you know, when I think about Pete, you know, you're one of those folks, right? And it's so many, like when I think about the staff list in my head, I'd have to actually look to see the others that, you know, kept going and kept going. But they went into not just radio, not just television, and that wasn't really the case in the point, right? They were learning transferable skills that they were able to apply into any environment. But when WCWP came up, they would accredit that venue for what it gave them the opportunity to do and become. And that's a very important part of the heart, I think, of WCWP. And when I think about the friendships that occur at that radio station, lifelong. I look around the room here and I see Karen Fiorelli. I'm trying to hold back my eyes now. I see Joe Conti, who people seem to forget about for some reason. Like, how can they? He's so dashing. I see Allie in the back, and I put photos up of us, you know, online not that long ago. And to think that these friendships and these, you know, relationships still continue is fantastic. You mentioned earlier about stories. I think Karen Fiorelli is one of my favorite stories ever, and I'm glad you're here. Oh, yeah, absolutely. So if I recall correctly, I think, Karen, you're working for News 12 still? Is that true? Yeah, okay. Good. Well, one night we were doing news, WCWP News, and I think, what was that, 6 we had that at? 5 or 6? Yeah, okay. So I'm in my office, and the person that wrote the song, Blind Purple People Eater, died.
Have that clip. We still have that clip, don't we? I have it. All right.
I hope someone, I think I may have it too. So I'm in my office, I'm listening to the newscast, and somehow, some way, Karen tripped up. She got tripped up, which is fine. It happens to all of us. So as Karen is getting tripped up, she starts to laugh, and this is exactly what she said. And I'm going to try to emulate the emotion as she was delivering that line. She starts laughing. She says, you know, so-and-so, you know, the person that composed, you know, Blind Purple Pee-Pee Eater died the other day, and he died of this. And her voice started crackling as she was talking. And it says, and his home, and she's laughing so hard, and she's getting through it, right? The old manager in me, like, would have raced into the studio and just, you guys know, I just would have, like a hook, like, it pulled her right out. I was laughing in my office so hard. I said, I can't even say anything. I have to let her get through this on her own. She's got to hit the brake, and then I have to go back on the air. So I waited and I waited. she came into my office. She was crying and laughing at the same time. Laughing because of what she said and how she said it. Crying because she's worried about what I'm going to do to her. So as soon as she came to my office, I just looked at her, she looked at me, and I was hysterical. So that was like one of the funniest things, you know. So there were so many stories like that of people making these kinds of mistakes.
Learn from them. That's the whole thing.
Exactly.
To come here to learn. And,
right. So when you think about a radio station, right, whether it's WCWP, but you know, and my other station too, but this is always my first hat, you know. I have to thank WCWP for everything it gave me. Kind of going back to an earlier point about the time of the station that was bad, when all of the programming disappeared from our planet. Tough, especially with all the programming I talked about, stripped away block by block. To go to a network that we had kind of no participation in and no involvement in, and thankfully I'm old enough to not care anymore. What? You got it back, I know, but it was hard. I was the guy answering the phone every day, and at the same time still trying to ensure folks like you and Karen and Rob and Pete and Jay and Mike Petterford and KJ and Kevin McClure and all these guys continue to learn and do what they needed to do, and try to not get them involved in that end of what was occurring, because their education mattered. What they did matters, right? In or out of the classroom. So we had a very unique operation. It was a very special place, you know, in lieu of all the press. I mean, I think about all of the experiences. I was there for 9/11. So the building has so much significance to me personally, too. And all the experiences I had, not just as a student. As a student, I mean, I had some great mentors, too. So the institution as a whole provided that for me. I remembered Professor Abby Dress. She had a great public relations program. And oddly enough, I think at the time I had taken courses with probably then station manager Judy Kramer once or twice. And I was always at odds with what I was learning because I always questioned it. And that's the one thing I'll tell to anyone here that's a student, even those that have moved on. Question what you're learning. Make sure that it is what they claim it to be. Don't let us be the beginning and the end of that lesson plan. But when I think about the studios, that's where folks learn the most. And that's a big part of what WCWP is all about. And I think about even my experiences. I lived as an employee in those studios. I was in those studios. I engineered all of the faculty programming. I engineered all of the classical music programming Monday through Friday. Victoria Crosby, I remembered, and she's still on the air, I think, at Hofstra and a few other places. So it's really something to marvel when I think about the hours that I spent in those rooms. And when I think about who you learn things from, and I remember Chief Engineer Bob Anderson. Bob Anderson. Yeah. Well, both of my chief engineers have their first name has one syllable. My first one was Ron. My second was Bob. So Bob Anderson. If it wasn't for Bob, I wouldn't even be in this still, because he taught me what connectivity was and how radio stations function and operate. What goes on behind the scenes, the stuff that Dan doesn't tell you about, keeps us awake at night as we try to beg our administration for bucks and try to move our stations forward. But when I think about shows and the progression of shows, I remembered when I was on the air. You may not know this. I had a few shows. I had a music show that was 6 to 9, and then it moved 7 to 10, I think. And I did rock and roll. And I look at Joe, and I think I remembered getting you some interviews too. I mean, I think Zach Wilde, the guitarist for Ozzy, I think I hooked you up with him, and you guys got going. I remember I'm sitting in a studio one day, Yngwie Malmsteen calls me on the phone. I thought he was full of crap, but he had the accent, and I kind of played along. And then before long, he was asking me to go to his house in Florida and hang out with him. But I have this thing with heights. We've done a lot of great things on air, not just music, too. It was sports programming, talk, news, education. It was all of it. I mean, the amount of news that we did was unbelievable. The guests that we had island-wide, politicians, financial aficionados here like Marty Cantor on the island and a few others. It's a great station. And I'm sure Pete will continue that tradition going as he goes forward. I mean, one of these great success stories at WFAN. And I'm blessed in my career still the fact that at two institutions, both my SUNY Old Westbury Web Radio folks and my WCWP folks, the worlds collide in a big way. One of Pete's producers sent me a clip. This is the best part. What's Sean's co-host name? DA, right? So Sean is in a studio with DA, the host. Pete's there. One of my former alum, James, is there. So DA said something that frustrated Sean, and Sean just said, "You know what?" Sean said, "I'm going to put DA in his place, in his head." And he said, "Hey, DA," he says, "I want you to take a look around." He says, "Right now we got Pete the Body Bellotti." I didn't know that was your nickname, by the way. Pete the Body Bellotti. He said, we have James Baccioni, a young man producing, and he says, and myself. And then he says, I went to SUNY Old Westbury. He says, "Where'd you guys go?" And he says, "You went to LIU, NYT, LIU Post." And he says, "LIU Post." He says, "The other man in the back room, he's from OWWR, SUNY Old Westbury." And then he says, "You know what? You're the only guy that's not." He says, "We were all taught by the same professor." So the fact that I'm on my, not against you in any fashion. Thank God I wasn't a student of Dan's. We had enough conflict with the wall between us. It's true. After the divorce, he got the house and the kids. But I got lucky with some of the kids that finally I had visitation rights to again. So when they started to work with folks from my house, it was great. It was just something to marvel. And he says, "We were all taught by the same person." He said, "How about you?" And he was looking around. He's like, "Wow, is that right?" And I was like, and I'm thinking to myself, I'm like, "Wow, is that right?" 4 people in the studio, 3 of them, from here, from WCWP, and from where I am now. But when I think about LIU, Long Island University, I slept here. The radio station was the reason why I came to school here. And my father could probably tell you more. He's back there. But I thank him for that opportunity. And I remembered, I looked in the catalog, and there was a picture of a studio. I said, that I could do. I want to keep that going. Because I was a transfer student, actually, from a SUNY school, from a broadcasting program. I had taken some time off, and then I went back to school. But anyway, it was one of the best decisions that I had made that got me to where I am today. And I look around at all of you, and I think about all of your successes. I mean, that's what it's about. It's not a selfish occupation. What's our function? To act in the interest, the convenience, and the necessity of the public. It's not about us, right? It's about the listeners. It's about the viewers. What can we give them? We don't get lost in our own heads. We're providing content for those, would you say, Dave, those normal folk, right? It's us versus them. It's not. It's that, and we don't tell them everything that we learn because we have that access to that information, and we have the distribution because this is that tool. This microphone is that tool. And we know not to take advantage of it, but it has more power than we give it credit for. But we still have to respect it. Anyhow, so yeah, I had no speech. Long Island University is where I definitely got a second start on my tier in broadcasting. Suffolk Community College gave me the first for television, and I was fortunate enough to work there. And here at LIU, without it, I don't know where I'd be today. When I think about how I came to be where I am at Old Westbury, Old Westbury came on tour looking for, what station can they model after, and they found WCWP. They found Dan and I and a few others, and they brought a string of students with them to us, and they decided this is the model that they want to be on. So WCWP, the arms extend, and to even take that extension further, Suffolk County Community College just started an internet radio station, and one of your friends too, Bill Terry. Yeah, I told him you were going to be here. He knows. So he said hi. Their station too. Their station was modeled after mine, which was modeled after here. So the impact that WCWP has island-wide is big. And the fact that these relationships continue to occur, and you guys are just productive in your own professions, whether you're in radio or TV or not, that's one of the most important things about the program and about LIU. And the future, who knows what's going to be there, right? When I think about, relationships with stations across, Long Island, and, radio is what it's all about, and it's where it really is. The technology changes, what we do doesn't. society changes, but we still acquire the information the same way. You know, we use the new technology to still get the same content. We're writing it the same way. We're distributing it differently, but we're still doing it. And so long as we stay true to the message and you continue your creativity and your passion, that's all that matters. That's what makes the degree from here mean something. That's what makes your experiences from WCWP mean something. The same thing over by me at SUNY Westbury. And to see that, you know, continue to flourish is great. So I guess you know, I want to wrap that up with that note. And early, actually, you said something about Ted and his son. And Ted's son, you know, he trained me when I worked for News 12. Before he went to Sirius, he trained me at News 12 in production. And he was such a gift. He was so brilliant, and he knew what he was doing. And we always used to talk about, you know, why don't you just go into television? He's like, I don't know if I want to be in television. I'm like, what? I'm like, this guy is so good. So, you know, I was fortunate enough to have worked with him. And, you know, it's still a great business. And don't let the current climate and the state of affairs globally impact or affect what you're doing in that studio, behind that microphone, on that screen, behind that camera. Right? Don't let what's occurring at WCWP for the students in the room of the alum affect what you want to do on your own station. You matter, you're the alum, you're the student, and just continue to make sure that stays your initiative. Okay? Thank you. And I'm humbled and I'm honored. You guys rock. Thanks.
Yeah.
You don't have to suck in there.
1, 2, 3. I definitely want a copy of that one, my friend.
Hi. Hi, Chief. Hi.
1, 2, 3. You go, John. Before I pass the microphone around, I need to say a few words about Joe Manfredi. When I arrived at WCWP, Joe was there. He'd been there a long time. He was the institutional memory I needed to move forward in the job. There's no way I could have done the job without Joe. Pete, unfortunately, doesn't have that, and I'm going to do the best I can to get you where you need to go. But I owe a huge debt to Joe Manfredi. Now, despite the way we separated, and life has its moments, I still consider him a friend, a colleague more than that, and an outstanding educator and broadcaster. Because he was tough at times and he was soft at times. He was a taskmaster, and he was also somebody you could sit down and he could help you through a problem. That was the beauty of Joe Manfredi. That is still the beauty of Joe Manfredi, probably at WOR. And I don't know your students back there, but welcome, please. You're part of the family now. Joe makes an interesting point. I just want to connect the dots again. WCWP has had an impact on just about every commercial and other college radio station on Long Island. I got a lovely letter from Norm Pruslin at WUSB when he found out I was retiring about how we're all connected. And we are. We're all connected. Mike McCain.
Mike
Kane, I'm sorry. Is sitting back there. He's here to visit Joe. He and I met a while ago. I don't know what year it was, Mike, I don't remember. And I went in there with Bill Moser, the two directors, because they wanted to build a radio station. And we built a radio station, Bill and I, in the image of WCWP, as Joe said. So WCWP, OWWR will always be connected because Joe was the perfect person to take that station where it needed to go. And I was happy that that worked out the way it did. Because as I said, I consider him an outstanding educator and an outstanding broadcaster and a terrific human being. So from my heart to yours, Joe, thank you, and you deserve this more. Okay? Thank you. Who's next? Come on, there's got to be a Joe. Oh, there's got to be a Joe story in the room. There's got to be a million of them. Hold on. Alana, go first. Ladies first, Joe. Thanks for coming, guys.
Oh my gosh. I just want to say congratulations to all the inductees. You all deserve it so much. My name is Alana Leiter, and I started Post back in like the early 2000s. I just want to say thank you so much to Dan Cox and also to Joe Manfredi. When I walked into the station for the first time, I just remember being trained, and I knew I wanted education, but I also wanted communications at the same time. And after being trained and working at the station and doing shows, I just developed all these skills, and I was able to incorporate them into my teaching. So now I'm a full-time teacher with high school, and it's just very, very rewarding incorporating those skills, and I still continue doing radio shows to this day. So I thank you so much for providing, to helping me obtain those skills. Thank you so much. And WCWP will always be a huge part of my life, and I owe it all to everyone in this room, so thank you so much.
12
Congratulations to everyone.
Don't forget 12 noon every Sunday, the Rockin' Sunday show with Alana.
Yes, 12 noon every Sunday.
She's been doing it ever.
Yes, I'm still doing it to this day. I started when I was a freshman, and I continued ever since, so thank you. Thank you so much. Someone. Anyone over here?
Hello, everyone. Congratulations to all the inductees. My name is Sandra, aka Sandra D, as some might know me on OWWR. I'm here with some of my fellow OWWR people, and we're here representing Joe, and we want to wish you guys congratulations. I remember walking into OWWR, I had no idea what was going to happen, and it was in a moment in my life where I was pretty confused. I was pert, I was upset, I was angry at the industry, at what was going on, and I said, what am I going to do? Where am I going to go? And actually, his dad came into my life, who introduced me to Joe, and that's when he's like, you should come down. And I said, okay. And it's there that I became this flourishing broadcaster that I am today, interviewing so many amazing people, and not just that, but meeting my second family and realizing how special of a place it was. So if OWWR is as amazing as anything, I'm sure WCWP was as well. So I'm honored to be here with all these amazing and incredible people. And it seems like a true family, as we are too, right? Congratulations, Joe. Well deserved.
Oh boy. I still cringe at my voice behind a mic. I'm gonna just start there. But hi, I'm Joelle, also, now I'm alumni, but former student of OWWR and Old Westbury and all that fun stuff. And I remember before I officially started as a student at Old Westbury, I went on an orientation on a tour. We're going on the tour. And my tour guide happened to mention a radio station. And I was like, oh, well, that sounds cool. Where is that? Because maybe that's something I want to do. And she was like, oh, my friend is part of the station. Let me take you there. So I went there. I walk into Manfredi's office. I am terrified because I don't know how to speak to humans. And I'm like, hi, radio station, you do that? I might want that. Maybe. I don't know. That's a really bad summary. But he's like, yeah, when you start up, come on and find me again. I'm like, okay. Fast forward, school starts. I walk in his office again, still terrified because I don't know if he remembers me, probably not. But I'm like, hi, back again. I want to be part of this station. Can you help me with that? And, he gave me the paperwork, helped me sign up. And from then on, I fell in love. He taught me so much. And I'm just really glad that I still get to continue doing my show. And just for everything that you've taught me, thank you so much. You always teach us that radio is a privilege, not a right. And I try to still stand by that statement every time I hop on that mic. So just thank you so much. And of course, congratulations to everybody out here as well.
Joe Manfredi. When I first started at Post, within a 3-week time period of my first 3 weeks of my college career, My car got stolen, 9/11 happened, and I walked into WCWP. Those are the first three things I remember from getting into college. And I wandered into that building because, like many of us here, I was not a broadcasting major. I was an education major. I was going to be a teacher. I became a teacher. I've been one for 16 years. Will was one of my students. And as part of the freshman 101 class, you had to join something. Well, I hate fraternities. I can't run unless somebody's chasing me. And I just was like, I'm not really want to do anything here. And I keep walking by this building every morning with this antenna. And I'm like, that's the radio station. Okay. So I walk into the station, not really knowing what's going to happen when I get there or what my intentions really are. And as soon as you walk in, there's Joe's office. And he goes, what can I do for you? I'm like, I'd like to look around. He's like, okay. He takes me into the web radio studio. And he's like, well, this is the web radio studio. He gives me, the 5 cent tour. He goes, all right, come back next week for your training. And I'm like, okay, I guess I'm going to be on the radio. I had no idea. So I come back, not really knowing what to expect, and he's rattling off serial numbers and model numbers and this and that. I'm like, sure. He's like, your show's going to be 10:30 a.m. on Wednesdays. Okay. And he's like, you're going to need headphones and whatever else. I'm like, okay. So I go rummaging through my parents' basement. I find these 1970s cans, as Dan used to call them, and I come in with them, and they plug them in, and my book of CDs, and next thing you know, I'm a radio DJ. Not knowing what's going to happen, I end up starting to say I was a metal guy. I start playing my CDs. Little did I know nothing about radio edits. So I'm playing all kinds of songs. And luckily, I'm not on FM because I'm playing all kinds of explicit content that I had no idea that you're not supposed to do. So I walk out of the studio and Joe goes, next time you might want to use our library. I'm like, why? He's like, did you realize the number of F-bombs that came out of that radio? I'm like, okay, good advice. But I guess what I'm trying to say is that he took the time to train me. He took the time to embrace me. And had it not been for him putting me on the air, I would not have had all of the family and the people that I met at the station that I am still friends with today, Karen, one of them. And just thank you for that, because if it wasn't for that, I absolutely would not have made it at this school. And it was my home base. And I spent 4 years there. That was our fraternity. That was our club. That was our place. And no matter what time of the day you came into that building, somebody you knew was there. It could be at 5 in the morning. It could be at 5 at night. It could be whatever. There was always somebody there. And it was just a great place to be and a great place to learn. And when I started planning my lessons, little did you know, I was doing mini radio shows. So thank you and congratulations. Please give it a mic. I keep screwing up Mike's poor last name. Hold on. There you go.
Folks, I'm going to be quick. My name is Mike Chimeri. I'm the Vice President of Communications at SUNY Old Westbury. I'm going to start this like an AA meeting. Hi, I'm Mike Chimeri, frustrated former news radio reporter. I'm actually here to say, basically, thank you for what I'm sure is among the litany of poor decisions that Dan made at WCWP by letting Joe come to us. If fighting for better, challenging people to be better than they think they can be, challenging institutions to be better than they think they can be, not always doing it in a friendly tone, but being committed to the purpose is what he learned at WCWP. Thank you, because he's made us better and helped hundreds, if not thousands, of our students become people they didn't think they could be. So for that, congratulations to you. You can keep trying to make us better. Not always going to work. Look, I've worked for the state for 20 years. It's just not always going to work. But keep doing it, because what you're doing, what you've all done, makes a huge difference. So thanks a lot.
quick story before we get to the next inductee, because this is about the next inductee. When I first arrived at WCWP, I didn't know what the hell these kids were doing. But they'd come into my office and say, I'm the music director. I'm the program director. I'm the sports director. He was the music director. About a month into my tenure, I couldn't find a new record by one of my favorite bands at the time, Linkin Park.
Oh, I remember that.
And I just, and I thought to myself, how can I get Jay moving? How can I get him inspired? I yelled in the hallway, where the fuck is this record? I want the new Linkin Park, I want it now! It's true. It's absolutely true. And poor Jay looked like a deer in the headlights. Scared as a rabbit. But I didn't mean it. It's like the time I screamed at somebody on April Fool's Day and they came back at me screaming a litany of disgusting things, and I said, April Fools, and they felt really stupid. But that did inspire Jay. I think he went and bought it. It was on my desk the next day. But a music director is supposed to do that. They're supposed to acquire music for you. So that was my inspirational speech in my first interaction with Jay, who has done an outstanding job over the last 20-something years with your show. But I'm not going to say any more. Maybe I'll say a little bit more later. But right now, Pete Bellotti is going to come back up and do your induction speech.
Now I gotta read something I wrote. I have to. I spend all night writing these things. So, when I first started with WCWP as a student, there were 4 names that I always equated to the foundation of our on-air presentation at the time: Mike Chimeri, Jay Mirabile, Mike Ferrari, and Chris McIntosh. Those are the mainstays. Those are the guys always there for the station, helpful, egoless, and just wanted to be better for the station. Now, Jay and I had a less than friendly exchange the first time we met. You know, the sports guys do the games, have preemptions. So we preempted the Disco and Funk King, and no one told him. So me going in there, first time being a sports director, I go and tell Jay, hey, you're preempted for basketball. I think it was basketball. And it wasn't met very well by Jay, but that was the only fight we ever had. And it wasn't even a fight. We became good friends. He's a radio nut. You know things that are just, like, you'll tell me things, oh, hey, this person may want to do a show on the station. I didn't know they were not doing anything right now. You know everything about the business. It's in your blood. My old boss, who's at Sirius now, used an acronym that I always use when I teach classes. It's called POKE. Passion, opinion, knowledge, and entertainment. Entertainment always underlined. Jay personifies entertainment. His shows are smooth. Great production, great delivery, great music. One thing that I think people don't realize about Jay is how hard he fought for this station. He helped lead the initial charge when the music and the station was taken away from the students. We got it back. You can't tell the history without Jay Mirabile of WCWP. And there needed to be something on the wall in the Patricia Mirabile studios. Jay, come on up. Congratulations.
Oh, I guess I'll take the picture now. Should we do the picture now or later? Or what are we
That was the best speech I ever made. Yeah. Wow. I'm not very good at these speeches, by the way. I'd rather be in a studio, I'd rather be behind a microphone, and I'd rather have nobody there with me. It freaks me out, these type of things, but I'm going to do the best I could, so just bear with me, please. So,
back in 2020, I lost my mom, as many of you all know, and this one's definitely for her. When I got this award, it really made me look into the sky and thank her and say, "Look, Mom, we finally did it." With that said, every single member of WCWP, some who I'm very close to, Dan Cox especially, and then others who I didn't really know that well, reached out to me because we're family here at WCWP. I couldn't tell you how many cards, how many letters, how many emails I received from so many people, so many staff members, both present and past. It just blew me away, and it just made me just so thankful and so grateful to be part of this amazing, amazing family. But in any case, guys, back to a more cheerful side of things. Pete Bellotti, as they said in The Sopranos, I got my pin. So I was talking to some of the present WAVE staff. They're over there. Let's give them a round of applause. I was talking to them a little bit earlier, and I'm blown away by how much stuff has changed technologically at WCWP. But one thing that I noticed in talking to these great guys is how similar things are still today as well. The commitment to this station is there. I mean, to this day. It's that same commitment that Karen Fiorelli had, Joe Conti have, Pete Bellotti, and every single person here at the station. People who, eat, breathe, sleep it, stay at the station. It's practically their home. They see it more than they probably see their own kitchen in their own home, right? And that just shows the commitment and how special WCWP is to all of us, and really to those who listen to us as well. I remember walking into WCWP at the time. Joe knows this very well. With a good friend of mine, Andrew Englander. I had met Andrew in some classes, and I was looking to be a part of something. I didn't know what I wanted to do. So I was driving around the campus. I'm like, where am I going to go? What am I going to do? Well, guys, I don't know if you know this, but the first place I stopped, and Dan's going to laugh at me, is the horse stables. Okay?
They had a restaurant out there.
And I was like, I want to try this. I want to try to ride a horse. I've never done this before, but I want to do it. Well, they see me, and I got the snub, boy. I mean, they didn't want anything to do with me. They're like, practically, what are you doing here? Go somewhere else, okay? So I left, and the next place I went to was to talk to my friend Andrew, and he said, why don't you try WCWP? And I'm like, I'm all into the technical aspects of broadcast. I used to work at public access television as a student in middle school, high school, and a little bit beyond, and I had a great time doing that. But I don't know if I really want to be behind the mic. It doesn't really seem like it's for me. So he said, come on, I'm going to take you there. I'm going to introduce you to some people and give it a shot. So I said, okay. So I reluctantly went over there. We walked in the doors, and there's that little sliding window. And between that window, we see a guy by the name of Joe Manfredi, okay? And he welcomed me, boy, with open arms. He came right out, and we had a chance to chat. I told him a little bit about who I was, that I was a freshman, that I wanted to get involved with something. And similar to Joe Conti over there, he pretty much signed me up without me even signing myself, and said, you're going to start, and you're going to start reading news. I'm like, oh my God. I'm like, this is crazy. He's like, it's only 10 minutes. You'll be fine. I'm like, okay, if it's 10 minutes and 10 minutes only, no problem. So I start doing news broadcasts. And I'll never forget, on my first news broadcast, I'm writing the script and everything, and I keep referring to New York as Gotham, okay? And Joe, the Batman fan he is, did not like that I was referring to his secret place of Gotham to New York. So he told me, never again, not Gotham. it's New York. So I learned from that mistake. I moved on, continued doing some news broadcasts, started really getting into you know pressing buttons and moving faders and doing all this really cool stuff in a really cool studio. I think it was Studio 2, which is now our Studio 4. It gets confusing. It's a WCWP thing, believe me, with the numbers of the studios. And I start producing a student government talk show. I start you know doing a bunch of things. And I said, Joe, I'm ready. I want to do a radio show. So he's like, what do you want to do? So I knew somebody at the time by the name of Frankie Arena, who I went to high school with. And Frankie was doing a show that was all funk music. I'm talking about like Parliament, Funkadelic All-Stars, and a lot of really cool stuff, right? And Frankie was departing, he was leaving, he was going somewhere else. And I said, I sort of want to pick up that legacy, but I want to do something a little bit different. And I created a show that at the time was called The Disco and Funk King Show, okay? Don't ask me to this day how I came up with that name, because honestly, Dan, I have no idea, okay? But it works. So the show played a lot of funk, it played a lot of disco, played a lot of freestyle, and we had a great time. There was somebody who came on right after me, after doing this high energy dance show, okay? And his name is Mike Chimeri, and Mike's getting inducted right after. Mike, come up if you want. And and what's really interesting is that you went from this high energy dance show to a smooth jazz, instrumental oriented jazz program or show, right? And if you guys want to see how that goes over, go over to his blog page, because you could hear old air checks of me on the air and then Mike Chimeri coming on, smooth instrumental jazz. And one of the funniest things that he says in one of these air checks is, after my high energy show, and he stops. And he starts his show, right?
I don't remember saying that.
Oh,
I thought you were going to say the one where I said, Jay, son, you're a tough act to follow.
That one's there, yes, but the other one was my favorite, and he stops, okay? And by the way, just check out your website. You'll see it in the earlier archives, all right?
I blocked it from my memory.
Thank you very much, Mike. And Mike has become a great friend. And probably, in my opinion, one of the greatest voices you'll hear anywhere on radio, Mike Chimeri.
Thank you.
So that brings me to the rest of my written speech. From day one, I was welcomed here at WCWP. WCWP makes you feel a part of something. You learn not just about radio, but you absolutely positively learn something about life. You learn how to interact with people. You learn business. You learn how to deal with different personalities, different situations, and how to kind of navigate them. It's my opinion, and this is purely, you know, subjective. I know some people might disagree in this room. I hope they don't. But in my opinion, WCWP is really and truly, for me, the greatest place on earth. I mean, hands down. And I know Christina loves Disney, but I think this beats Disney. You know, it's Disney with Dan yelling at you. That's what WCWP is. And Dan has yelled at me, by the way. Dan has come into my studio on a Sunday, unexpected. He knows that he's popping in, and has yelled at me for blasting his speakers too loud and blowing them out, okay?
I've only had to replace them twice.
And Dan, I'm sorry.
Not worth every penny.
Thank you very much. If I didn't feel the way that I feel, I wouldn't be hosting this show for, believe it or not, and it's crazy to believe, 23 years, DFK. We've had a blast. I mean, I have had an absolute blast. I've gotten to work with some amazing, amazing people. I mean, Dan, of course, Pete Bellotti, Joe Conti, Karen Fiorelli, Jen Domino, who's not here, even Alan Seltzer. I mean, come on, we work together on homecoming weekends. You know, that's always interesting, isn't it? Yeah, kind of the odd couple, but it works. And you know, I've had the opportunity to interview some really great artists. Joe was mentioning. I've got to speak with and have in studio and have on the phone notables like Gloria Gaynor, Casey and the Sunshine Band. That guy, by the way, could never say my name right, and no matter how many times I cut it in audition, it never sounded right, so I never used it as a drop, okay? We had Amber, we had TKA, Lucas Prada, a bunch of others. And what's really interesting about some of the people that you interview, and I think a lot of you guys probably know this, some of the people at The Wave, Mike, Joe, whomever, is that you're interviewing these people and you think the interview is sort of like a business exchange in a sense where you're kind of learning about what they're up to, you're telling them stuff as well, but then they become oddly your friends. And I'll never forget being on a date one night many, many years ago and getting a call. I'm being careful. And getting a call from one of the freestyle artists, you know, just ask me like what I'm up to, and I'm like, I'm on a date. Like, why are you calling me right now? Like, it's very odd, the interactions and the people that you meet within radio, the people and the friends that you meet at WCWP. I mean, these relationships are lifelong. I cannot stress enough how much all of you in this room, every single one of you, the WCWP people, even the OWWR people, Sandra and all of the rest of them, Joe, you guys are family. There's no question about it. I'm grateful to be a part of this station. I told, by the way, Chris McIntosh that even though he is the longest running show on the station, I started at a younger age, so watch out.
But he claims he's never dying.
I know. Yeah, we'll work on that. I'm only kidding, Chris, if you're listening. Anyway, guys, I'm really, truly blessed to be inducted into the Hall of Fame. I love every single one of you. This is the greatest honor of my life, and God bless you all. Thank you so much. Let's try it again.
Oh, another one?
Yeah. You took more to pee. Jeez. Come on. I ain't dead yet. 1, 2, 3.
Good. Thank you so much, Dan.
You want to get me that album? All right. Who's got something? Oh, Christina Kay. Can't resist, huh?
So I never lived close to the station, and when I would have to come in on the weekends, it was never fun for me. But if it was on a Sunday, I knew I was going to get my dose of vitamin J. And when I love something, I love it a little too much, but I think Jay is one of the few people who could ever love something on the level I do. And the way we have geeked out over music, if people would walk into the room when we were talking about music, they would walk right out because we would just be talking a whole different language. And I want to thank you because when I worked at Party, I was so not suited for that station, but you made me suited for that station. You gave me the strength and confidence to interview and the behind-the-scenes knowledge of some of these people to throw little things you guys talked about in the past. So I learned so much for you, so I thank you, and I'm so proud of you. I love you, Jay.
Charlie wants to say something? Yeah, Charlie.
Jay was talking about relationships. I didn't go to post when Jay did, but when I was a student, and since, he's become one of my best friends. And we speak about Sundays. And when we did sports on Sundays, he would always bust my ass. And you know this. And still do. And let's not forget the homecoming weekends that we've experienced and so many memories of that. And you stalk me on Facebook, but it's A-okay.
I'm going on a cruise with you one day.
Of course. Hey, you said your grandma was here just to meet Margaret, so there you go. Congratulations, my friend.
Thank you.
Congratulations, Jay. It's been an honor getting to know you for the past, oh my gosh, I don't even know how many years already. You were one of the first people that I met at WCWP. Jay is so knowledgeable and so talented, and he totally deserves this award. He helped me create my home studio. Remember, I was on the phone with you for a really long time. And yeah, it worked out really well. He's great with technology, very talented. Congratulations, and you deserve it. Congrats.
Auntie. All right. Oh, God. Heavy metal disco funk king.
Well, it's a good segue, Dan, because that's what this is about. So, the more I got into the station, and when as I call getting called up to the majors, when Dan came into the studio one night and he sent me to FM, which I was like, wow, and I couldn't believe it. I had totally caught me off guard. But when,
One of the mistakes Mike was talking about.
yeah, definitely, without a doubt. But we were on really late then. Nobody heard me anyway, so no, I'm just kidding. But Karen had brought me on as the metal guy because there was nobody in the station that knew anything about metal. And Jay, right, you had and she was like, I don't know shit about metal, and maybe you can help me because I don't know anything.
Weezer, and I was like,
And she's looking at me. I'm like, that's not metal. No. So Jay was music director at the time, and he says to me, he's like, I keep getting a call from this record label, and they want me to somebody interview George Lynch, and I don't even know who that is. And I'm like, yes, when? He's like, I'm like, set it up, just give me a time. So I do all my research, get all my questions together, and then I tell Joe Manfredi, and he's like, I'm engineering your interview. I'm doing it. I'm like, you're going to engineer it? He's like, I'm engineering it. So we call up, and I'm on the phone with him for like an hour and a half. And exactly what you were saying before is exactly what happened. I'm talking to him, and he invites me out to CPI. He's playing out in the Hamptons. And then I was supposed to go. I couldn't end up making it. Joe goes, and he's like, we're going to hang out with George Lynch. And I'm like, yes, I know. And Jay was like, who is this guy? And I'm like, you don't know who George Lynch is? So if you don't, anyway, regardless, that was the beauty of the station because Jay was just in it. He wanted us, and he just didn't throw things by the wayside. He always wanted everything to go really awesomely, and it always did. So thank you and congratulations. And Jay, how do you pronounce Queensryche? Queen Circuit, there you go.
Joe, who was that, Muncie? Was it Muncie, the metal guy? Yeah, he's still marketing. He's still around.
Yeah, he just celebrated his 30th anniversary.
Yeah, it was him and Sony Music. My two buddies.
Yeah, Muncie. I think he called me a couple weeks ago. He just left a message. Congratulations, man. Good luck. Okay. It sounded like Muncie. That's Yeah. All right. Last one. It's been a long afternoon, but okay. How do I? First of all, Mike's cousin was supposed to be here, and we feel bad that he couldn't be, but he asked me to step in, which I take as an honor, my friend. So Mike and I have an interesting history. The earliest memory of Mike was my Broadcast 4 class, which was at that time taught in the basement of Humanities Hall before we moved everything over to the station. And he really was my first experience with an adult autistic person. And I found it difficult to deal with in the very beginning because I didn't know what to do. Mike is a great guy, but he'd get very intense like that. And I'd never met anybody like that before. Well, except maybe my father when he was pissed at me. But it was the kind of thing that didn't last long, ended, and moved on. So it was an anomaly to me. I'd never dealt with a human being like this before. So luckily, and if I may, Michael, I called the Academic Resource Center. And as a professor, of course, there are privacy issues, and that's why I have to ask Mike's permission to talk about this. There are privacy issues when it comes to students, and if you give me permission, I'll just continue the story.
Please. I was going to thank you.
And I spoke to a woman whose name I forget, I'm sure you remember, who was working with you. And she gave me a huge, long explanation on what I was dealing with. And I thanked her very, very much. Because,
Bianca?
What's that?
Bianca?
I think it was Bianca, yeah, now that you remind me. Because we had an incident in the classroom one day.
Well, I don't know what you're going to get at.
Michael wanted something. I think it was a disc from my desk. And I'd left my office, and I came back, and Michael was going through my desk, which I thought was very inappropriate for a student to do.
Looking for names.
I know you were looking for Mike. But I came in, and of course, I'm young, I'm stupid, and I went, Mike, what are you doing?
Mm-hmm.
You know, I did a J.
I remember that.
All right?
Vividly.
And Mike went into one of his episodes and just took off. Scared the shit out of me. But I called the ARC, and I said, I just yelled at Michael, and I feel terrible about it. And they said, no, he's here. He's fine. He's, winding down. I said, okay. Because I didn't think he'd hurt anybody. And nobody, he'd never do that. But I was afraid he was going to hurt himself. All of a sudden, he's walking over Pioneer Boulevard, which is now Shark Street, which sucks. He walks through Pioneer Boulevard and take one from a Chevy. So I was worried. But she calmed me down now at the other end of the phone, and I realized what I needed to do. And I spent a lot of time learning about autism, which I knew nothing about 20 years ago. Now I know a lot about it. Not as much as Michael, who, in one of the, I think, the proudest moments I ever have of Michael was the day on air he told the whole world.
Oh, I remember, yes.
He told, and I was listening. I listened to his shows.
I had I was having an episode on the air.
On the air.
2006.
But he told the world about himself. And that takes a whole lot of courage, my friend. And that couldn't have been the more prouder moment in our relationship. And despite the fact that he would continue to have some of these episodes occasionally, and they did, with all due respect, Mike, they did scare people, but I would talk to them and I'd say, no, Michael's fine. Michael's fine. Someone said earlier Michael has a great voice. He does. Michael also has an incredible mind also. He could tell you exactly how many shows he's done, exactly how many shows of Instrumental Invasion, of whatever the names of your shows were, and I apologize, I don't know them all.
Mike Chimeri Show.
The Mike Chimeri Show. Of course, the Mike Chimeri Show. Yeah, I think one of the biggest disappointments was I said, Mike, you need to name your show, but you can't name it after yourself. That's policy at the station. I can't have the Dan Cox Show. It's got to be the blah blah show with Dan Cox. And I think he was a little disappointed, but he came up with Instrumental Invasion, which was fine, with Mike Chimeri, by the way, which.
It was a name, it was from WGBB.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. A classic old station. Thank you. But in an interesting way, over time, Mike has endeared himself to me in a way that no one else has ever done. And you learned earlier that Christina endeared herself to me. I'm collecting children now, and I'm expanding my family to more than the 4 that I already have. All adults. What a pain. Anyway. By the way, to those of you who do not have children, parenting is terribly overrated, extremely difficult, and not recommended. I'll get back. So anyway, Michael and I became friends. And yes, I did ban him from the station for a while. I had to because he was having more episodes at that time than the station could handle.
At least you gave me 5 weeks' notice.
I gave him plenty of notice.
Let me finish up.
But I let him finish, and then I brought him back. Because I don't think WCWP would be WCWP without Mike Chimeri. He brings a show to the air that I would never have programmed on my worst day. Nor would the DFK show too, but I am what I am. Being the guy who with my partner created the first heavy metal format in the country in 1982 on the radio, we were always pigeonholed into, they're a bunch of metal guys, they don't give a shit. I love 70s pop music. It's one of my favorite forms of music, and you know that now. But Michael got me to listen to Chaz. And I still listen to his show because his show is pleasant. It's informative. It takes you to another world. Somebody mentioned Roscoe earlier. Roscoe, I never got to listen to Roscoe, but I've watched a lot of video of Roscoe. He's a titan. He's a he had a phrase he used to use. Going to take you on a mind trip, baby. Mind excursion. Oh, thank you. We're going to take you on a mind excursion, baby. Michael takes me on a mind excursion every Wednesday night. And the only time I don't, and you're going to deal with this, is when his show doesn't fire correctly and my text message starts going up. My show's not on the air, Dan.
Yeah.
Which I'm fine with.
Week again.
Michael, you know, because I've told you this and I've emailed you this, no matter what happens, you are my friend, you are my friend for life, and whatever you ever need as far as this business is concerned, I'll do whatever I can to help you. Ladies and gentlemen, Michael Chimeri.
Well, thank you very much, Dan. Thank you for stepping up when my cousin Chris couldn't be here today. Thank you. I have a list of people to thank. I didn't know there would be so many speeches. But I will say that, now I'll just correct it. If I...
Say to the script, Mike.
Yes, exactly. I'm lost without my script. That's why I script out everything I say on Instrumental Invasion.
I know.
I give myself room to ad-lib, but otherwise it's just whatever comes from the notes, the annotations to the playlist. Anyway, let's start with Dan Cox, the director broadcasting for all but my first year on the air. Ever since we met in, well, Dan already said, but in that intro to radio production class, my second semester as a broadcasting major, he put up with, as he said, my quirks while nurturing my biggest passions, music and broadcasting. And he turned what I thought would be 6 shows of filler as the world was shutting down in March 2020 into a weekly show that has been running for 114, see, weeks. You know, I show 114 is what I put at the top of each playlist. 114 weeks in a row, plus the one where the previous week's show accidentally ran again. And ever since then, I would always submit my show the Thursday morning after each show, which I also air check on the guest room computer and on mine, just in case it freezes, because it's a 6-year-old computer. To Chris Chimeri, who was a LIU Post class of 2008. And I wish he could have been here, but I know he's watching. We hosted amateur radio shows growing up on camcorder and audio recorders, the Chris and Mike Chimeri Show, which is why I called the original web radio WCWP incarnation the Mike Chimeri Show. He was the host, I was the cameraman who occasionally interjected, would tell you what the weather forecast was or anything like that. And we also recorded separately on our own with our own tape recorders, and that laid the groundwork. Let me move this microphone for my future, I bet I sound better now, future radio and voiceover career.
Start over, okay?
I'm not gonna. To the Hall of Fame committee for putting my name on the ballot, and the Hall of Fame voters for voting me in. To my parents, Lisa and Bill, and to my sister Lauren, for supporting me and my passion unconditionally, driving me, mostly mom and dad, to and from campus, putting up with my quirks for sure, gifting me with this is Dad, my first camcorder and film camera, shooting street signs in Freeport. And there was no zoom on it was just straight point and shoot camera. Setting the stage for my event photography future, which I've been doing throughout the show. The ceremony. Including this ceremony and homecoming weekend, and for lending me his microcassette, which a recorder for dictation. He's an attorney, and he would do dictation that way, which led to other microcassette recorders, mostly by Sony, and regular cassette recorders by GE and Sony. And my cousin Chris had a Talkboy. If you remember those from Home Alone 2, credit card, you got it. I was afraid of hearing my voice when I was growing up, or even seeing myself on camera. But experimenting with those tape recorders, which I was initially recording episodes of Garfield and Friends off the TV, or the music excerpts during the local forecasts on the Weather Channel, and then I would experiment with recording my own voice. Hi, this is Michael Chimeri. I had a very high voice back then. But then around 12, it deepened, and here I am. And that got me over my fear. To Janine Soloro, the longtime WCWP secretary and my mom's bowling teammate. This is just all the people throughout my life, so I'm going to go in chronologically for the most part. My grade school teachers and faculty from pre-K all the way to 12th grade, teachers like Denise Losell, Sam Slutsky, Gina Federico, Lynette Muchler, Fran Brown, David Gary, Kate Among, Michelle Corbo Harkleroad, who I saw at my high school 20-year reunion a few years ago. That was very nice. Kate Among, Julie Magnuson, Violet Turner, who was my homeroom teacher when I moved to Wantagh after 6th grade. This was 1993, and she was my English teacher in 8th grade, and then I believe in 10th and 12th. Moving along. Guidance, that was all the teachers. Guidance counselors, Jim Brown, middle school, and Olivia Shapiro, high school. Now to some post professors. Larry Garfinkel, Jerry Carr, he was Jerry Karff here. He was my senior thesis professor. I didn't know he was Jerry Carr until later, and I'm glad to know about that WGBB past. The late Tom Ruckert, Chris Dodrell, Gene Carlomusto, Bill Pulaski, also my academic counselor, Jen Cusimano, and he wasn't a broadcasting professor, but I took a lot of ceramics classes, especially if I would switch out of a course I didn't like. Frank Alt, and we're very close to the Craft Center, which is where I'm very familiar with. Some of my pieces are still hanging throughout the house. Arlene Weidig and Dr. Barbara Fowles from the Media Arts Department. CW Post's Academic Resource Center that Dan mentioned, and staff that included Carol Rundlet, Bianca Ventrola, who was previously my academic counselor, my first one here at Post, Judy Hoff, Cynthia Darpino, Jen Smith, Rich Degnan, and Chris Mosseri. There's so many more, but those are the names that... My WCWP crew, including Jen Domino, Erica Soto, Joe Conti, Kevin McClure, Karen Fiorelli, Alexis Lindsay, a.k.a. Lextasy, DJ MJ Leonardo, the young Prince KJ Mills, DJ Eli W. Sen, John Focarino, Beverly Kundell, Bolnick, and my fellow inductee, Christina Kay, who I met when I was doing evening jazz, when that was a thing. And thank you to Martin Phillips. I didn't put him on here, but he recruited me for evening jazz, and he had been doing Thursday night jazz. Very, very nice guy. Plus, Jason Cascone and Darlene London Johnson from the PEP office. I led into their career planning show called So You Want a Job in 2005 and 06. And I can't think of Here Working for a Living by Huey Lewis and the News without thinking of them, because that was the theme. And Joe Manfredi, was the engineer of that show, most of the time anyway. My WGBB friends, the late program director Tom Ross, Dave Lefkowitz, who hosted Dave's Gone By, and Barry Pulchin and Lorraine Rathjen, the hosts of You Ought to Know. And I appeared on their show hours before I started the Instrumental Invasion. It was The Instrumental Invasion. I didn't have my name in it. And he, looking at the, Barry Pulchin, looking at the, I guess this programming schedule, called me Chirusi. Jay Chirusi! But after that, he, and I was a guest on their show many times, but he learned it was Chimeri. It cost my dad money each week that I hosted The Instrumental Invasion, because WGBB is brokered programming, when it's English anyway. It's otherwise Chinese, a language. That's not I'm just saying what it is. But the experience was worth it. To Glenn Holzer, my voiceover coach, who I took lessons from him on Skype before Zoom was a thing. I enhanced my voiceover skills, improved my delivery, and he was able to tamper my announcery tendency. Little Gary Owens there. My Giblin friends, Leo F. Giblin School in Freeport, where my mother is a teaching assistant, and my sister was, and now she's a teacher at Atkinson School in Freeport. For giving, specifically, Mandy Muldowney, who's here, Amy Lederer, Anita Stevenson, Valerie Schwinger, Lori Downing, who's here, and Wendy Connolly, who's here. They gave me, and still do, give me an open invitation to read to students whenever possible, especially on Guest Reader Day each March, Dr. Seuss's birthday. Special thanks to Lori for asking me to read Gerald McBoing Boing in 2015, which started a tradition of reading to over there every year. To Valerie Schwinger, my speech teacher while a student at Giblin, for teaching me how to speak properly, for continuing to support me and be a friend before and after her retirement. I'm sorry she couldn't be here, but I hope she's watching. She'll be watching the archive. I forgot to give her the link to Zoom. And to Anita Stevenson, for her undying support of my work and letting me record her annual Book of the Month Club play at Giblin, and it's going to be next Friday. A YouTuber and school teacher is on my thank list, Game Dave Thomas. I'm proud to support him on Patreon and call him a long-distance friend, and I hope to meet him in person someday. To Joe Bertie, a fellow fan of contemporary jazz, co-host of the Smooth Jazz Show on WCWP with Kim Bradner, the original D Gunboats, and Joe has met many musicians through his work at Warner Music Group. And that brings me to my musician friends, David Benoit, Jay Rowe, Chieli Minucci, Nelson Rangel. He would always call him, "Hey buddy, how you doing, Mike?" To Marion Meadows, Ken Navarro, Bill Heller, John Favicchia, and Jay Dobbins. And to my musician fan friends, like Catherine Gilrain, Dolly Moy, Ron and Nydia Hancocks, and other names that are escaping. I'm sorry. To Kelly Dacey, another fellow fan of contemporary jazz and my girlfriend who found me through MikeChimeri.com because of my Mike Chimeri Show interview with Brian Simpson. Yeah, she added me on Facebook around 2010 during Evening Jazz, and I thought, oh, she must be listening to this. I guess the signal goes all the way up to Connecticut, but but it wasn't that. It was because of my interview with Brian Simpson, keyboardist Brian Simpson. I love you, Kelly. I love you. To Ryan Graybo, a longtime friend, host of Randomize and Customize, RNC. I love one of the promos he did where, so you're tuning around on the radio dial, right? And get station after station, this song, there's just some song looping with those lame DJs. And it's a speech synthesizer saying, my music is fly. Who don't even live in your own area code. Yeehaw, Country 107, Oop, wrong city. Well, there's another way to get your 80s fix, and then gets to the important part. I graduated with Ryan he graduated alongside me in 2004. Fingers crossed he will join the Hall of Fame sooner than later. To the inductees whose names I, Christina, Joe Manfredi, Alan, Jay, join, and I'm glad to know, Ted David, Bill Moser, Bernie Bernard, Lou Scharfberg, Art Beltrone, Hank Niemark, John Libretto, Neil Marks, Joe Honerkamp, Bruce Leonard, John Cummins, Bobby G, Bobby Guthenberg, Mike Riccio. To my fellow inductee, Joe Manfredi. When I attended a station meeting in September 2000, my first semester as a broadcasting major, I was intimidated by something you said. I don't remember what it was, but it was just the way you said it. But when I joined For Real the following year, on Dan's recommendation, telling Dr. Judy Kramer that I had a nice set of pipes, and this was actually the day before 9/11, September 10th, he said that. And it was within a few weeks I was on the air. And I have air checks of all my shows except for October 5th and August 30th, 2005, but that's another story. I probably could have recorded it from the computer, but I was so committed to recording to the DAT, digital audio tape recorders. Yeah. Yeah, well, I recently redigitized those as WAV files, so it was an interesting journey hearing my early days when I was less guarded on the air and just pretty much said anything. To my fellow inductee, Alan Seltzer, and to Jeff and Pat Kroll and Zach Parker, who were the homecoming weekend coordinators, and of course Alan and Jeff and Pat ran the Alumni Association, and so did Pete Bellotti, who I'll get to in a second, for giving me 1 or 2 slots on homecoming weekend ever since 2006. And I called it Alumni Weekend those first 2 years because I was misguided. Okay, yeah. But it's just we call it homecoming weekend. Well, I could have called it Old Timers Weekend. Because of
That was the original name.
I know. I play it. I love that.
As we got older, we figured,
Yes, but I play that bumper on my show every year, where it's Jeff and whoever shouting the WCWP Old Timers Weekend. To Pete Bellotti, the new director of broadcasting here, or station manager, you called me one day last April to tell me my dream had come true, that I was finally in the Hall of Fame. According to a screen cap on my phone, it was 10:29 a.m. Monday, April 26th, 2021. And beyond that call, Pete has become a great friend and one of my biggest supporters, and I know he'll be great, he already is, as Director of Broadcasting. To my fellow inductee, Jay Mirabile. Jay is the biggest supporter of mine. We were both in ARC, Academic Resource Center, but as he said, he's been with WCWP for 23 years, ever since his first semester here. To my aunt, Robin Rose Brenniger, I wouldn't have chosen CW Post had she not been academic counselor when I was considering where to attend college in my last year at Wantagh High School. It helped to surround myself with faculty who knew her, including in the media arts department. And one of my professors, Shelley Rothman, he was a math for elementary ed, because regular math was too tough for me. But my lasting impression of him is that when I first saw saxophonist Nelson Rangel perform, he was opening for David Benoit at Planting Fields Arboretum. I thought, this guy looks like Shelley. Shelley. I didn't call him Professor Rothman. He looked like Shelley Rothman. And who'd have thought that he'd become such a great friend, and like all the others I listed. But about Aunt Robin. And yet, despite all of surrounding myself with faculty who knew her, like Frank and Linda Marbach, again with ceramics, WCWP, the one place she didn't know anyone, has had the biggest impact on my life. And lastly, to all my friends, relatives, and listeners who I didn't name, I may not have named you, but you're never forgotten, and I will never forget WCWP. Thank you so much.
Once again, Mike Chimeri. Anyone got stories? Who's got stories about Mike? Uh-oh.
Congratulations, Mike.
Thank you very much, Dan. Mike, congratulations once more on your induction to the Hall of Fame. I cannot think of anybody more worthy, more deserving of this award than you. And this is a special day for me because you're in the Hall of Fame. No question about it. You are one of the most knowledgeable people when it comes to your music, when it comes to radio overall, that I know. And it's because of that that I find you so fascinating to talk to and to work with. And I consider you a friend as a result of this place. So thank you very much, Mike. Congratulations again. Who wants this?
Who wants it? Anybody?
Bobby G, I think.
Bobby G. The Bobby G.
Mike, I want to publicly thank you for all the documentations you've done over the years for WCWP. If ever we needed someone to document everything by the minute, this is your man.
Anyone else? This is the part of the speech where I do the concluding remarks. And part of the program I do the concluding remarks. And this is going to be difficult because this is it for me. This is my last official act as the director of broadcasting, was to bring all of you together to honor these incredible people. But I need to share some things with you personally before I go, because I didn't want a retirement party. I don't like accolades. I don't like people knowing my birthday. I don't like any of that. It's never been my way. But I need to share some things with you that I've been thinking about over and over and over again for the last month before I left. I walked onto this campus when I was 19 years old in 1981. And with very few exceptions, I've never left. 41 years of my life have been spent here. I did have a career. I worked for NBC Television. I worked for WBIS. I worked with some of the great people in journalism at NBC, who I miss dearly some days. But when an opportunity comes to be, 10 minutes from your house and live a collegiate lifestyle, you don't say no to that. So 20 years ago, I said yes to this ridiculous thing that I'm doing. I wrote a piece to the president of the university a couple weeks ago, and I want to share some of it with you. Part of it, if you've ever been in one of my classes, you'll be bored by it because it's one of my lectures. I want to paraphrase one of my influences in life, a guy named Pete Fornatal, who's been mentioned more than once today, whose shows are archived at WCWP and are played still, his mixed bag radio shows. He said in a documentary that I used to show in my classes, they came to the universities to develop their voice. The generation of the generation of the greatest generation, sometimes known as boomers, came to college in the 60s and 70s to find their voice. And they forced, not asked, not please, they forced the universities to do something they hadn't done yet, which was when the FM radio frequencies opened, they forced those colleges to get them, to give that generation a voice. And it was all in those days about counterculture, about fighting the war in Vietnam, about taking stances. And that's great. And it gave that generation a voice. And that went on through the 70s. Stations on Long Island, WUSB in South Stony Brook, didn't open until 1976. We were one of the first. We might not have been that controversial. But that counterculture idea of the 60s and early 70s evolved into something I think even more important. The radio stations at colleges, which are being closed every year because universities don't want to pay for them, are losing their voice. And it's a tragedy because the bean counters and the accountants have taken over our systems, not just at universities, but everywhere. They've given up on art. The two people I admire the most on this planet are journalists and artists. And I don't want to be political, and it's not my way. I just want to be straight with you. Both of those are under attack. Both of those vocations are under attack in our country. And it saddens me, and it worries me for my children and my grandchildren. Because when those kids came to WCWP, whether it be in 1961 or in 2001 or 2020, they were the oddballs. They were the misfits. They were the ones that needed to find others like them to get along with and be creative and do the things that make them feel good about themselves. We spend so much time today in the media and social media. Our kids need to express themselves. This generation is under the most anxiety of anyone of all time. Pandemics, guns, whatever. So they need a place to feel safe and to feel like they can get together and do things together that have creative edges and have social edges and be free to be themselves. And there aren't a lot of places on this planet that do that, but college radio stations have always been that. I used to call WCWP a clique-free zone. If you were in that goofy clique in high school, you're not here. The world is out there. In here, we're all the same. And that's the only way creativity can flourish. That's the only way art can flourish. That's the only way journalism can be told and told the truth, is when people of different ideas and cultures come together and work together to make things. And that is the basis for college radio. That's always, in my heart, been the basis for college radio. Not pushing buttons. I could teach a chimp how to run a board. No offense, Pete. I could teach a chimp. I can't teach him how to be creative with it. Only you can do that. And that's because you collaborate with others that you may not always agree with, you may not get along with outside of the building. When you're in that building, you do a lot. And it's weird because by the time they're all together for a little while, they all become friends. What a great way to live. I will miss it terribly. I miss it already. So please, as a favor to me, to Bobby, to all the inductees today, to Pete, let's not let college radio go away. Because if it does, there'll be one less safe space for our kids to be when they go to college. Thank you. Have a great day. My ass. Still beat that stuff. Michael, congratulations. Thank you. Joe.